Okay, so module 2 basically is about marketing research and also consumer behavior. Okay, so these two topics, we try to capture these topics tonight. Look, we wouldn't be able to discuss everything about marketing research and consumer behavior. But just in case, I believe you have got the access to the e-text, so you can look at it. You can look at your e-text for detail. Just capture the main points, and we discuss. Yeah. Okay. Now look. There are a few things in here about the marketing research. First of all, as we discussed last week in the first module, our role in marketing, or actually the aim of organizations, is actually to provide superior value for the customers. Okay. Now, in doing that, all marketing managers need information. Okay, information about what? Information about the customers, the resellers, the competitors, and government regulations, for instance. In fact, they are the critical points for us to understand before we create our offering that has value for customers. Remember how we define marketing? The activities, processes, or a set of institutions in order to create, communicate, deliver offerings that have a value for customers. And before we do that, we actually collect the information. Okay. This is a bit of definition about market information system. If you look at that, it includes people, equipment, yada yada, to help us understand what information we need and when we need it, and who needs to get that information in the organization, so we can distribute that correctly. Okay, now that's a bit of MIS again, Market Information System, which is, there are a few questions that the organization would normally ask in terms of understanding the MIS that they need to design. So they need to assess the information needs, source the information, analyze and interpret the information, distribute the information. Okay, how do we use the market information? We can use market information to help us identifying potential existing customers. You may be laughing about this, but a lot of organizations believe that they know their customers, they know the target market, but in fact, they may be aiming at the wrong one. Okay, or their target market may have changed over the time, because the customers' customers' preferences may also change. Therefore, we may be talking to a different set of customers. That's the reason why companies need to always monitor who their customers are. And in saying that, companies also need to understand who would be the potential customers or the potential buyers of their products. So they can also generate some opportunities for the company. Highlight opportunities and threats. That is pretty clear. We understand the environment, like we discussed. In module 1, in the market environment section, we try to understand the opportunities and threats through analyzing the environment. And then we can also use the market information to design the marketing mix, which is actually the offering that we discussed briefly before. We design the marketing mix based on our understanding on the market trends. Highlight changes such as technological changes or customer choices or customers' needs, trends, preferences, and so on and so forth, as well as the competitor changes. Right. So we do need the information because these things are basically not permanent. They may change. And information can be sourced from 3 areas: the internal records, market intelligence, and market research. The internal records include the customer, include any reports that the organization produce, that includes anything in the company's database. This includes customer complaint report, financial reports such as sales report, profit report, the production report, quality report, and so on and so forth. Okay. Now, marketing intelligence here, we need that to understand our competitors. When we perform competitive analysis, we use what we call as the marketing intelligence. What is the specific sources of information that we collect to understand our competitors? Well, a number of things. We could review their campaign, their offering, their marketing mix. We could also review their announcements that they make to the media, or we can also attend their annual general meeting, or we could refer to the announcement that they make to public. Okay, so for instance, when if you work for Samsung, for instance, you would want to understand what Apple would respond to the in the Consumer Electronics Show in America. In America, they normally conduct the Consumer Electronics Show in January, at the end of January every year. So you would want to understand what would they announce in that kind of event, for instance. Okay, and market research. This is the other one that the other source of information that we can use to understand our market. Okay. Right, so briefly, that's basically about the more information, a bit more information about the internal records, marketing intelligence, and also market research. Okay? Types of information, we have two types of information. First one is primary data or primary information, and second one, secondary. The primary data consists of the information collected for the specific purpose. So we customize the information, we customize our research to address specific questions that we have, to address specific marketing issues, okay? While secondary data are gathered for different purpose. Someone else has done it for us, all right? So it already exists somewhere, okay? In many cases, the secondary data is available for free. Right, you can just Google, such as the Ocean Bureau statistics, for instance, data from ABS is available for us to for free. Okay. Now, between these two, it is highly recommended that when we do our research, when we design our research plan, it is highly recommended we go through the secondary data first. We design our secondary data first, because that helps us to design our primary data better, more accurately. Okay, and it's also due to the fact that secondary data is available for free. Secondary data can be sourced from these sources, internal sources like the financial report, customer complaint report, your CRM, company CRM, customer relationship management report, or government publications, commercial and periodical and books. Now, the last three, some people label the last three as the external sources of secondary data. There are some advantages and disadvantages of using internal data source. I'm not going to discuss that in more detail. You can go through that your text. Oops, oh, sorry. Right, now let's look at the primary data collection. Okay, this is what we call as the primary research or market research. And this information is customized to address our specific problem. Okay, customized to address our specific problem. Okay. Right. There are two main research instruments from marketing perspective. We have what we call as the questionnaires. This one is quite popular. A lot of marketing organizations use questionnaires when they conduct their own research. It could be conducted through in person or focus groups, mail, phone, or online. And the online research is in growing trend. You may recall that I sent out the short survey using my SurveyMonkey account to get feedback about the webinar, for instance, okay, which is quite quick to conduct. The other one is through mechanical devices. If we want to understand consumer behavior further, we can use mechanical devices like neuromarketing technology that basically measures the brain activity equipment. We put some cables in the head and try to understand the response of the respondents. Meters such as people meter, which is basically used for media research. AC Nielsen, for instance, use people meters and check out scanners and other mechanical devices. Now, when you look at, if you refer to the fast-moving consumer goods, for instance, or consumer healthcare, they may subscribe to data from companies such as Sinovate or AC Nielsen to understand the product movement in the store, at store level. How many people buy their product, how much people spend their money to buy the product. So that is generated by checkout scanner as another device. Right, now in terms of research approaches or types of marketing research, we have what we call as the observational. Here we observe the respondents or consumers in this instance in their natural environment, okay? We can also use people meters, for instance, to help us understanding media behavior. Observational is normally considered as qualitative research, except the one using people meters, because you can quantify that. The observational research, they use focus group discussion. They observe customers, and that will generate the qualitative data. The next one is survey, which is basically the quantitative normally. So we structure a lot of survey, use structured questionnaire to get the information, to measure the opinion of the respondents, and sometimes in a more less formal way, it can also be unstructured questionnaire. But in my experience, I normally have the structured survey. The last one is experimental. The experimental is actually used to test the hypothesis, to generate theories, right? We try to look at if one variable affecting the other variable, or in the complicated research context, we can also measure a multivariable, the impact of multivariable to one variable. Okay. All right. So the other thing about marketing research, from research technique perspective, we have what we call as qualitative and quantitative, as briefly talked about in the previous slide. The qualitative research will basically generate the information in the format of people's thoughts and opinions. Therefore, we can't generate percentage or mean score like quantitative. Okay. Whilst in the quantitative, we collect data that can be statistically measured. Okay, we normally use numbers in here, such as statistical measures like mean score or percentage to measure it. So when you look at the data, and the data is similar to the one that I published for our survey, so I was using quantitative research at that time. Okay. Quantitative research normally use lots of people, usually more than hundreds, and some organizations have got a standard that they want the minimum number of people they would get minimum 125 people to conduct the quantitative research, and some other organizations use statistical tools to measure how many people that they need based on the confidence interval and margin of error that they can accept. Okay? And they use the statistical averages, for instance, such as mean score, to find out people's opinion, to measure people's opinion. And the other one is they also consider margin of error. Okay. Right. Now, qualitative research involve small number of respondents, and one of the popular technique is the focus group discussion. Right, and sometimes we also conduct the in-depth one-on-one interviews. Right, they are limited in terms of numbers, and in terms of focus group discussion, we assign someone to be the moderator and invite 6 to 10 people maximum in the room, and the moderator will drive the discussion. And normally the moderator has what we call as the discussion guide to drive the discussion in the room. And the clients would normally observe from one white mirror outside the room. Okay, in-depth interview is not a technique, as mentioned before. In-depth interview is normally conducted for qualitative research when there are several reasons why companies may select in-depth interview rather than focus group discussion. Obviously, focus group discussion is cheaper rather than in-depth interview. Okay, because in one focus group discussion, you can get the opinion of 6 to 10 people, but in one in-depth interview, you only get one respondent. Now, there are some reasons why companies perform in-depth interview over rather than focus group discussion. First, if the respondent is not easy to find, for instance, if you want to interview the opinion of CEO or CMO, Chief Marketing Officer, of a graduate of the uni graduates, then it may be hard to find them. Okay. The other reason is if the topic is sensitive, you may want to conduct the in-depth interview instead of a focus group discussion, because if you gather these people into the same room, they may not be comfortable to talk in the room. Okay, so there are a couple of reasons why in-depth interview is still performed. Okay. All right. Qualitative research it normally uses the open-ended question because it allows us to probe the respondents, whilst the quantitative research would normally use closed-ended question. The reason for that is because our respondents don't have a lot of time to answer the questions. Now, you may recall that the survey I conduct, I only had one question, and it took only a few seconds for respondents to answer the question. That's it, because that's the only one I'd like to find out, for instance. Okay, and when I started my career in marketing, for instance, we normally talk about targeting 40 minutes to complete the quantitative research or survey. But in today's landscape, where pace of life, we are all busy. We leave home in the morning and come back home in the evening. We may want to aim at 5-10 minutes max to so the respondents can complete the research. Unless it is very specific and you approach specific respondents and you explain the respondents, hey, look, it may take up to 20 minutes, right? Okay. These are the steps that marketers should take in terms of assessing the information requirements. I'm not going to discuss this in more detail. I'm going to skip that. This is the one I'd like to discuss with you a bit more. In terms of marketing research process, we have 4 steps. The first one is what we call as defining the problem and research objectives. Okay, the outcome in here is to understand what the business problem is, and we convert the business problem into research problem or research question and research objectives. Okay, in my experience, writing a marketing research proposal or marketing research plan, most of the time is basically to spend to define the problem and research objectives. Once we get the research problem and research objective correct, then the other things will follow. Will follow through. The second step is to design the research plan. And then we follow that with implementing the plan by collecting the data. If it requires us to go to visit the respondents, then we'll do that to interview the respondents. Okay? And interpret and reporting the results. okay, interpret the data, and also report the results. Okay, we are going to discuss this in more detail. Now, before I move on, can I, Alex, can I suggest that we stop now and come back to this spot by clicking the same link? Is that okay?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. I'll do that now.
Yep. Thanks a lot. Let's do that now.